Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we are going to slow things down, dim the lights a little, and step back into a moment in time that felt louder, brighter, and more uncertain than almost any other. A night suspended between excitement and unease, between optimism and quiet fear. A night when millions of people stayed awake, watching clocks, listening to televisions, and wondering just for a second whether the world they knew would still exist when the numbers changed. This is the story of New Year's Eve, 1999. At the edge of the millennium, the world held its breath. Not because of an approaching war or a visible disaster, but because of something far stranger, a line of code, a missing pair of digits, and the unsettling idea that modern life might simply forget how to function when the calendar rolled forward. The year 2000 was coming, and no one was entirely sure what would happen when it arrived. For months leading up to that night, the phrase Y2K floated through conversations, headlines, and late-night talk shows. It was spoken with seriousness by experts, joked about by comedians, and half-believed by ordinary people who did not fully understand computers but understood one thing very clearly: everything now depended on them. Banks, hospitals, airplanes, power grids, traffic lights, televisions, refrigerators. The invisible systems that quietly held daily life together suddenly felt fragile. And so, as December 31st arrived, the atmosphere was thick with contradiction. There was fear, yes, but also celebration. If the future was uncertain, then surely that was reason enough to dance, to gather, to stay awake together. If the world might change overnight, then this night mattered more than any other. Imagine waking up on that final morning of the millennium. The sun comes through the window like it always does, but it feels different, as if it knows something you do not. The radio is already talking about preparations. The television scrolls warnings across the bottom of the screen. Phrases like "just in case" and "out of an abundance of caution" are everywhere. Even the calm voices sound slightly rehearsed, as if everyone is playing their role in a dress rehearsal for uncertainty. In kitchens across the country, cupboards are fuller than usual. Bottled water is stacked in corners. Flashlights sit on tables, their batteries checked and rechecked. Some families treat it seriously, others treat it like a game, but no one treats it like nothing. There is an unspoken agreement that something unusual is happening, even if no one can quite explain what that something is. And yet, alongside the worry, there is excitement, pure, electric excitement. Because this is not just the end of a year. It is the end of a century. The end of a millennium. A once-in-a-lifetime moment that no living person has experienced before and no one will experience again. Fireworks are planned. Parties are organized. Music is chosen carefully, as if the right song might somehow carry everyone safely across the threshold of time. For young people especially, the night feels legendary before it even begins. This is the night stories will be told about. The night photographs will be labeled and stored away. The night future versions of ourselves will point to and say, "I was there." The fear feels distant, almost abstract, compared to the immediate thrill of staying out late, dressing boldly, and feeling part of something enormous. Outside, the world continues as usual, but with an edge. Stores are crowded. Malls hum with restless energy. Shelves empty faster than expected. Batteries, water, canned food items that were once boring suddenly feel important. Cashiers look tired. Shoppers glance at clocks. Everything feels slightly urgent, even when no one admits it. Inside homes, conversations circle around the same questions. What if the power goes out? What if nothing happens at all? What if this is all overblown? What if it is not? People laugh at their own nervousness, but they still check the flashlight one more time. They still leave the television on, just in case there is an update. The strange thing about that day is how normal it feels at the same time. People still eat breakfast. They still shower. They still argue over small things. Life does not pause for the end of a millennium. It simply continues, carrying its routines forward like muscle memory. But beneath those routines is a quiet awareness that this is not just another day. As evening approaches, the tension shifts. Fear gives way to momentum. Whatever happens will happen, but first there is a night to live. Clothes are laid out with care. Mirrors reflect glitter, bold colors, and styles that feel loud enough to match the moment. Music plays while people get ready, the bass heavy, the lyrics familiar. The future can wait a few more hours. Somewhere, warehouse lights flicker on. Sound systems hum to life. Cables are taped to concrete floors. Doors are marked with hand-drawn signs. There is a whole parallel world preparing to wake up after dark, a world of music, movement, and temporary escape. A world that exists precisely because reality feels uncertain. The beauty of that night is not that people believed disaster was coming. It is that, faced with the possibility of things going wrong, so many people chose to come together instead of pulling apart. They chose noise over silence, motion over stillness, community over isolation. Whether they were watching the countdown from a living room couch or dancing under strobe lights in an industrial space, they were doing it together. Midnight loomed like a shared horizon. Every second felt heavier as it approached. Clocks were checked. Phones were held. Televisions were turned up. People counted down not just to a new year, but to an answer. Would the lights flicker? Would the screens go dark? Would anything change at all? And beneath all of that was a deeper, quieter question, one that had nothing to do with computers. A question about time itself. About what it means to cross a line drawn by humans, to leave behind one era and step into another. About whether change happens in a single moment, or slowly, invisibly, long before anyone notices. Tonight, that is the moment we are stepping into together. Not with panic, and not with noise, but with curiosity. With a willingness to remember how it felt to stand at the edge of something unknown, surrounded by sound, light, and possibility. To remember a night when the future felt close enough to touch, and the past had not quite let go yet. So get comfortable. Let the world outside fade just a little. And let us return to that final night of 1999 when fear and hope shared the same countdown, and no one truly knew what would happen when the clock struck 12. As the evening deepens, the focus narrows. The vast idea of a millennium turning gives way to something more intimate, more familiar. The story moves inside, into a typical home on that night, not remarkable in any obvious way, yet quietly representative of millions of others. A place where anticipation settles into the walls, where screens glow a little brighter than usual, and where everyone is waiting for the same moment, together but not always in agreement. The television is on, as it has been for most of the day. News anchors speak with careful precision, their tone balanced between reassurance and responsibility. Graphics flash behind them, countdown clocks, maps, headlines that repeat the same question in different forms. They talk about readiness, about monitoring systems, about teams standing by. Their words are calm, but the repetition gives them weight. Even when the sound is low, the presence of the broadcast fills the room. In the kitchen, someone is rearranging items that were never meant to be stored like this. Bottled water is lined up neatly along the wall. Extra food sits on the counter, unopened, bought more out of instinct than necessity. There is no panic here, just preparation. The kind that comes from not wanting to be caught off guard, even if nothing happens at all. Different generations move through the house in different ways. One person treats the night seriously, checking supplies, glancing at the clock, occasionally stopping to listen more closely to the news. Another rolls their eyes, half amused by the whole situation, making jokes about how nothing ever changes no matter how dramatic people make it sound. A third is somewhere in between, uncertain, curious, quietly alert. These differences do not cause arguments, not really. They create a kind of background tension, a low hum of contrasting attitudes that coexist without resolution. Everyone is aware that this night is unusual. They just disagree on how unusual it really is. In the living room, couches are arranged toward the television like seats in a small theater. Blankets are folded nearby. Remote controls rest on armrests, ready to be grabbed at a moment's notice. The room is dimmer than usual, lights turned down so the screen stands out more clearly. It feels less like an ordinary evening and more like a vigil, casual, comfortable, but intentional. Time moves strangely here. Minutes stretch longer than they should. The clock on the wall seems louder, each tick more noticeable. Someone comments on how early it still is, even though it feels late. Someone else says the opposite, surprised at how fast the day has gone. Both are right. The night is both rushing forward and dragging its feet. At the dining table, conversations circle back to the same themes. What did you hear? Did you read about that thing with the banks? Someone's coworker knows someone who works in technology and said everything will be fine. Someone else heard a story that sounds less reassuring. None of the information is complete, but it does not need to be. The act of talking about it is enough. It fills the space between now and midnight. Laughter breaks out easily, sometimes too easily, as if humor is being used to keep something else at a distance. Jokes about calendars resetting to 1900. Jokes about appliances suddenly forgetting their purpose. Jokes that end with a quick glance at the television, just to check. Outside, the neighborhood feels different. Fewer cars pass by. More lights are on inside houses. Fireworks pop occasionally in the distance, premature celebrations echoing down the street. The sound is both comforting and unsettling, a reminder that other people are awake too, watching the same clocks, listening for the same answers. Back inside, the routine of the evening continues, but every small action feels slightly charged. Someone pours a drink more carefully than usual. Someone else checks their phone, even though updates are slow. Someone straightens a stack of supplies that does not really need straightening. These gestures are not about necessity. They are about doing something, anything, while waiting. The television cuts to a montage of global celebrations already underway. Other time zones crossing into the new year. Fireworks bursting over cities halfway around the world. Crowds cheering, music swelling, clocks hitting zero and nothing bad happening. Each image brings a small wave of relief, followed quickly by the reminder that it is not midnight here. Not for us. That distinction matters. Because this moment feels personal. This is not about what happens somewhere else. It is about what happens right here, in this room, in this house, in this ordinary space that suddenly feels like the center of the universe. As the hours pass, the atmosphere subtly shifts. The earlier edge of anxiety softens into something more reflective. People begin to talk about the past year, the past decade, even the past century. Memories surface unexpectedly. Stories that have not been told in years find their way into the conversation. There is a sense that something is closing, even if no one can quite define what that something is. Photographs are pulled out. Old home videos are mentioned. Someone points out how different things were when they were younger, how fast everything changed without anyone noticing at the time. The conversation drifts, but always comes back to the clock. Always back to the screen. In one corner of the room, a younger person watches all of this with quiet fascination. Not fully involved in the preparations, not fully detached either. They absorb the mood more than the details. The glow of the television, the murmured conversations, the strange mix of seriousness and celebration. This night will imprint itself not as facts, but as feeling. As midnight approaches, the house grows quieter. Not silent, but focused. The television volume is raised slightly. Side conversations fade. People settle into their seats. The countdown clock appears on the screen more often now, returning after every commercial break like a reminder that there is no more delaying this moment. 10 minutes feels longer than an hour. 5 minutes feels like a held breath. Someone suggests stepping outside at midnight, just to see if anything looks different. Someone else suggests staying inside, where it is warm and familiar. No decision is made. It may not matter. The final minute arrives, and suddenly everyone is counting. Not out loud at first. Just internally, eyes on the screen, minds synchronized in a way that feels rare and fragile. This is it. Whatever happens next, this moment will be remembered. The numbers drop. 10. 9. 8. Someone starts counting aloud, their voice slightly unsteady. Others join in. Laughter bubbles up, mixed with something that sounds like relief already forming, even before there is proof. 3. 2. 1. Midnight. For a fraction of a second, nothing happens. And then everything happens, in the most ordinary way possible. Lights stay on. The television continues broadcasting. The clock moves forward without hesitation. The house remains exactly as it was. The reaction is immediate and complex. Cheers. Applause. Exhaled breaths that did not realize they were being held. Someone laughs, genuinely this time. Someone else shakes their head, smiling. The tension dissolves, not dramatically, but gently, like fog lifting. The world did not end. The systems did not fail. The night continues. And yet, even as relief settles in, there is a strange sense of anticlimax. After all that build-up, the moment passes quietly. The realization is almost humorous that the biggest question of the night is answered not with spectacle, but with normalcy. The television moves on to celebrations. Fireworks fill the screen. Music swells. The anchors smile more freely now. The house relaxes. People stand up, stretch, refill drinks, hug each other. The supplies remain untouched, suddenly feeling unnecessary but not foolish. This is how the millennium begins for most people. Not with chaos, but with continuity. With the comforting realization that life goes on, even after the biggest countdown anyone has ever witnessed. And yet, something has changed, even if it is impossible to point to. Not in the machines, not in the lights, but in the people themselves. They have crossed a threshold together. They have shared uncertainty and come out the other side. They will remember this night not for what happened, but for how it felt to wait. As the hours stretch past midnight, some people drift toward sleep, exhausted by anticipation more than activity. Others stay awake, energized now, ready to turn the night into a celebration at last. Somewhere beyond this house, music is getting louder. Crowds are forming. Another version of this story is unfolding in warehouses, streets, and open spaces filled with sound and movement. And that is where the night begins to split between the quiet relief of home and the restless pull of elsewhere. Between watching the moment pass and chasing it into something unforgettable. Because for some, midnight was the ending. And for others, it was only the beginning. As the night moves forward, the television becomes more than background noise. It becomes a guide, a referee, and for many people, the final authority on what is real and what is rumor. On New Year's Eve 1999, the glow of the TV screen holds unusual power. It is the lens through which uncertainty is interpreted, shaped, and quietly magnified. Every major channel is live. Graphics dominate the screen, digital clocks counting down, bold headlines repeating familiar phrases, maps dotted with blinking points that suggest constant monitoring. The language is careful, but the imagery is relentless. Preparedness. Contingency plans. Systems being watched closely. Even when the anchors speak calmly, the sheer volume of information creates a sense that something significant could happen at any moment. In homes across the country, people trust these screens more than their own instincts. If something goes wrong, the television will know first. If nothing goes wrong, the television will confirm it. And so eyes keep returning to the screen, even when conversations drift elsewhere. It is checked the way one checks the weather before leaving the house, habitual, automatic, reassuring and unsettling at the same time. Commercial breaks do not offer much relief. They are filled with oddly themed advertisements that feel tailor-made for this moment in history. Generators, emergency kits, flashlights, long-lasting food. Products framed not as necessities but as peace of mind. Even lighter ads reference the millennium in playful ways, reminding viewers that this night is different, that it deserves special attention, special spending, special concern. The result is subtle but powerful. Fear is never shouted. It is suggested, reinforced, repeated often enough that it begins to feel reasonable, even inevitable. The message is not that disaster will happen, it is that being worried is sensible. And that distinction matters. It allows anxiety to spread without ever being directly stated. News segments replay the same scenarios again and again. Experts seated in studios explain potential glitches in simple terms. Pre-recorded reports show teams in control rooms, surrounded by monitors, watching lines of code scroll past. Everything looks serious. Everything looks important. And because everything looks controlled, the worry does not disappear, it sharpens. Viewers are told that backups are in place, that plans exist, that teams are ready. But readiness itself implies risk. You do not prepare like this unless something might go wrong. That logic settles quietly into the minds of those watching, even if they do not articulate it. In some households, the television becomes the center of discussion. People repeat phrases they have just heard, sometimes without realizing it. They said most systems should be fine. They are watching the power grid closely. Airports are on alert. The words feel authoritative, borrowed from the screen, given weight by repetition. In others, the TV becomes something to argue against. Someone dismisses the coverage as exaggerated, driven by ratings rather than reality. Someone else insists it is better to be cautious. These debates do not resolve anything, but they give shape to the tension. They make the waiting feel active instead of passive. The media does not just report the moment, it stretches it. Midnight becomes a destination that is constantly approached but never reached. Countdown clocks appear earlier and earlier. Anchors remind viewers how many hours, then minutes, then seconds remain. The future feels close enough to touch, but just out of reach, held behind a digital display. What is striking is how global the coverage feels. Cameras cut from city to city, country to country. Fireworks explode over skylines already in the new year. Crowds cheer in places where midnight has come and gone. Each successful transition offers reassurance, but also raises the stakes. If something is going to happen, it will happen here. Our midnight. Our moment. The television makes the night feel larger than any single room or house. It connects millions of living rooms into one shared experience. Everyone is watching the same images, hearing the same phrases, absorbing the same tone. Fear, when shared this way, becomes less personal and more ambient, like weather, like static in the air. For younger viewers, this media-saturated atmosphere leaves a lasting impression. They may not fully understand the technical explanations or the historical significance, but they understand mood. They feel the seriousness in the adult's posture, the way conversations pause when the anchor's voice changes, the way laughter quiets when a new graphic appears on screen. The television teaches them, without saying so, that technology is powerful but fragile. That modern life depends on invisible systems. That experts exist to interpret danger for everyone else. These ideas settle in quietly, becoming part of how the future will be understood. As midnight draws closer, the coverage intensifies. Fewer commercials. More live shots. Anchors speak directly into the camera now, as if addressing each viewer individually. Their smiles are practiced, but their eyes are alert. This is the moment they have been preparing for too. The language shifts slightly from preparation to observation. We are watching. We are standing by. So far, so good. Each phrase is meant to reassure, but it also reinforces the idea that something must be watched closely. Silence would be more comforting, but silence is not an option on television. In the final minutes before midnight, the screen is filled with countdown clocks. Numbers dominate everything. Time itself becomes the story. Every second is accounted for, measured, displayed. The future arrives not as a feeling, but as a numerical event. And then midnight passes. The television does not erupt with chaos. It does not cut to emergency footage. Instead, it continues almost seamlessly. Anchors smile wider now. Graphics change tone. The language shifts again, this time toward relief. Systems appear stable. No major issues reported. Everything is operating as expected. For viewers, this confirmation matters. Even if the lights never flickered and nothing seemed different at home, hearing it said aloud makes it real. The screen gives permission to relax. To laugh. To finally believe what their own eyes have already seen. Yet the role of the media does not end there. In the hours that follow, coverage continues, now reframed as a success story. Reports praise preparation efforts. Experts explain why fears did not materialize. The narrative becomes one of competence and foresight rather than panic. The same media that amplified anxiety now helps contain it. But the emotional residue remains. People will remember how it felt to watch. To wait. To trust a screen to tell them whether the world was still working. That memory will linger long after the specifics fade. Because on that night, television was not just entertainment or information. It was a shared lens for uncertainty. A reminder of how easily fear can be magnified not through exaggeration, but through attention. Through repetition. Through the quiet authority of a glowing screen in a dark room. And as the night moves forward, beyond the living rooms and into the streets, into the music and the movement and the celebration, that media-shaped tension will still hum beneath the surface, fueling the need to escape, to gather, to feel something physical and loud and real. Which is where the story is headed next. After hours spent watching the screens, listening to the anchors, and replaying expert analyses, the collective anxiety begins to manifest in behavior. By this point, it is no longer just a mental state, it becomes physical, visible, and shared. Streets, homes, and public spaces start reflecting the tension that has quietly built over the evening. In households, people check their surroundings repeatedly. Are the clocks correct? Are the appliances off? Is the phone line working? Small actions, often automatic, are amplified by the sense that something unseen might fail at the stroke of midnight. Even the most mundane objects, the refrigerator, the heating system, a car in the driveway, become markers of potential instability. Checking and double-checking provides both reassurance and a subtle reinforcement of fear. The more one acts, the more urgent the concern feels. In stores and public spaces, the anxiety is visible in more collective forms. Supermarkets and convenience stores see last-minute shoppers rushing to buy batteries, candles, bottled water, and non-perishable foods. Even when supply is abundant, the act of gathering becomes symbolic in acknowledgement that the world might demand readiness. It is a ritual of preparation, not unlike packing a bag for an uncertain journey. Conversations change tone. Friends and family do not just ask what the plans are, they ask whether systems will fail, whether emergencies will arise, whether something unexpected might happen. Social rituals that usually carry levity, chit-chat, Jokes, casual greetings are replaced with check-ins, reassurances, and updates about preparations. Each interaction becomes a small calibration of anxiety, a way to measure both personal and communal readiness. Some people retreat entirely, turning inward. Lights dimmed, curtains drawn, television still on but voices lowered. This isolation is a protective bubble. Inside it, one can observe without engaging, prepare without exposure, wait without distraction. Others, however, seek the opposite: crowds, celebrations, fireworks, and music. The human impulse to counter fear with sensation and movement is powerful. Large gatherings in public spaces become more than a celebration, they become a psychological antidote to the creeping dread. Shared laughter, cheering, and noise act as communal reassurance, counteracting hours of tension built by the media and personal speculation. An interesting aspect of this public anxiety is how it interacts with trust. People who feel confident in the authorities, the electricity grid, or the reliability of communication systems tend to act with mild caution. They prepare, but without panic. Those who harbor doubt, whether rational or emotional, take more extreme measures. They stockpile more supplies, insist on continuous monitoring, or even postpone celebrations entirely. The night becomes a mirror of the spectrum of trust and fear within society. Even subtle cues in the environment influence behavior. A brief power flicker, a siren in the distance, or the sudden announcement of a delayed train can trigger disproportionate reactions. These events, amplified by the mental preparation for potential disaster, create spikes in anxiety. People who were calm moments ago might suddenly feel unsettled, their actions mirroring the tension of those around them. In neighborhoods, patterns emerge. Some streets remain quiet, windows shuttered, families indoors. Others buzz with activity, cars honking, parties in progress, fireworks launching. The contrast between these spaces highlights the duality of the night: fear coexisting with celebration, preparation coexisting with indulgence, anticipation coexisting with release. Psychologists observing such phenomena note the interplay of media, environment, and individual disposition. Anxiety is contagious in ways both subtle and obvious. Seeing others prepare excessively or behave cautiously can validate one's own unease. Conversely, witnessing joy, calm, or playful disregard can soothe. Public behavior on that night becomes a living experiment in social psychology, a balance between the unseen threats broadcast by media and the tangible relief provided by human interaction. Children are particularly attuned to these cues. They sense the tension in adults' voices, the repeated checks, the quiet pauses when a new headline appears on television. Their experience of the night is a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and subtle apprehension. The lessons learned about caution, the power of information, and the unpredictability of systems linger far longer than the night itself. As midnight approaches, the public's reactions converge in a crescendo of action and emotion. Streets fill with celebratory crowds. Homes glow with lights and television screens, and the energy of anticipation reaches its peak. The behavioral manifestations of anxiety: preparation, observation, caution mix with celebration in a complex tapestry. The human response to potential crisis is never singular. It is layered, communal, and deeply intertwined with the environment and the information received. And in this delicate balance, the story of that New Year's Eve continues to unfold, bridging the personal, the communal, and the mediated realities of life on the edge of a millennium. The anxiety, now embodied in actions, gestures, and choices, is the connective tissue between the quiet tension of the living room and the noisy chaos of the streets, a shared experience that will define the night and leave lasting impressions long after the clocks strike 12. As the clock relentlessly ticks toward midnight, a different kind of activity unfolds, one that is less visible in public spaces but no less intense. While some are shopping or pacing their homes, Others are immersed in the meticulous world of technical preparations. For these individuals, the approach of the new millennium is not a matter of celebration or anxiety alone. It is a challenge that demands planning, calculation, and verification. Businesses, especially those dependent on computers and digital systems, enter a heightened state of readiness. Departments across the globe have spent months, if not years, analyzing code, updating systems, and ensuring that every component is Y2K compliant. The stakes are high. Banks, utilities, communication networks, transportation, and government systems all rely on dates that computers interpret in a two-digit format. One misread date could trigger cascading errors, disrupting operations in unpredictable ways. Inside offices, technicians run final checks. Monitors glow with lines of code, servers hum steadily, and phones ring with last-minute troubleshooting requests. The air is thick with concentration. Each command entered, each system tested, is an act of both preparation and reassurance. Even in moments of pause, the technicians' minds are racing, anticipating potential errors, cross-checking logs, and confirming that backup systems are operational. For many organizations, contingency plans are multi-layered. Data is backed up, duplicate servers are ready to take over, and critical functions are mapped out in painstaking detail. Simulations and drills conducted earlier in the year are reviewed, ensuring that staff can respond swiftly if anomalies occur. The Y2K bug, while fundamentally a software problem, has forced the creation of a culture of vigilance. Every file, every transaction, every system dependency is scrutinized. In households where computers are present, particularly in homes with small businesses or home offices, the technical preparations are scaled-down versions of corporate efforts. People install patches, update clocks, and double-check software settings. Even personal devices, calculators, home banking systems, and digital appliances are reviewed. While the likelihood of catastrophic failure is low for consumer electronics, the symbolic act of preparation carries psychological weight. It transforms passive concern into active engagement. Communication channels become critical. Emergency phone trees, dedicated helplines, and internal messaging systems are all tested and monitored. Its staff keep logs of checks, monitor network traffic, and stay alert for any irregularities. The night is long, and vigilance is continuous. Sleep is often sacrificed, replaced by rotating shifts or the quiet hum of monitoring screens. Every beep, flicker, or delay is a potential alarm signal. Interestingly, the technical preparations intersect with the public anxiety explored earlier. When media reports highlight companies that have completed checks or government assurances about readiness, confidence rises. Conversely, stories about glitches, unpatched systems, or last-minute fixes amplify the collective unease. Even people who are not directly involved in technical work experience the ripple effects of these preparations through news coverage and social discussions. Some sectors adopt extreme measures. Utilities, transportation authorities, and large financial institutions run parallel systems, keeping older, more reliable computers on standby while their upgraded systems operate live. Redundant power supplies, duplicate communication lines, and manual override protocols are all activated. The night becomes a symphony of quiet, controlled tension, each system functioning, each procedure executed, yet all eyes remain on the clock, knowing that a single error could demand immediate intervention. The global dimension of these preparations is remarkable. Across continents, technicians coordinate via satellite communications, international phone lines, and networked systems. Time zones matter. A midnight in New York signals a different set of operational challenges than midnight in Tokyo or London. For multinational corporations and global service providers, this is a rolling wave of vigilance and orchestration of human and technical effort that stretches across the planet. Beyond the professional realm, Hobbyists and tech enthusiasts also engage in preparations. Some test old computers, run simulations, or document potential failure points for posterity. For them, the night is an experiment and an adventure, a chance to engage directly with a problem that has captured the imagination of the public. These activities, though small in scale, reflect the widespread fascination and concern surrounding the Y2K phenomenon. The broader impact of these technical preparations is subtle but profound. They contribute to a sense of order amidst uncertainty. Knowing that systems are being monitored, backups are in place, and experts are ready to intervene provides reassurance even if the reassurance is partially psychological. It transforms fear into action, anxiety into procedure, and potential chaos into structured readiness. By the time midnight approaches, the technical preparations have reached their final stages. Systems are running, backups are secured, and staff remain alert. Every team member understands their role, every contingency plan is ready, and every potential error has been anticipated. The unseen world of wires, servers, and code is a counterpoint to the visible world of streets, homes, and celebrations. Together, they create a full picture of humanity confronting the unknown. On one side, the emotional, communal responses. On the other, the disciplined, procedural defenses. This juxtaposition between the human and the technical, the visible and the invisible defines the experience of that New Year's Eve. The story is not just about a moment in time. It is about the interplay of psychology, society, and technology. It is about preparation, vigilance, and the enduring human desire to confront uncertainty with both creativity and discipline. As the final minutes of December 31, 1999, tick away, the world exists in a layered state of attention, anticipation, and observation. Outside, streets are crowded with revelers. City squares overflow with celebrants, and the scent of fireworks mingles with the crisp winter air. Inside homes, families gather around televisions, radios, and early internet feeds, waiting for the clock to strike midnight. But behind the visible celebrations, another layer of the Y2K story unfolds, a layer shaped by journalists, broadcasters, and media outlets that have spent months framing the narrative for public consumption. Media coverage at this moment is relentless. Television channels, radio stations, and online platforms are alive with reporters, cameras rolling, microphones extended, capturing every face, every reaction, every spark of firework. News anchors provide countdowns, safety reminders, and updates on any minor technical glitches. Newspapers and magazines have prepared special editions, some with elaborate timelines, some with feature articles exploring the potential implications of the Millennium bug. The world is watching itself watch the clock. Journalists act as interpreters of both fact and fear. They balance reporting verified updates from government agencies and corporations with the responsibility to avoid unnecessary panic. Their challenge is unique. They must provide real-time coverage while acknowledging the uncertainty of what may or may not happen. Words, images, and broadcasts shape public perception. A single live report about a system delay or minor glitch can amplify anxiety, while a reassuring voice can calm it. In urban centers, the presence of media transforms public spaces. Crowds gather not only for celebration but also for visibility. Televised segments capture faces frozen in suspense. Friends and strangers linking arms, eyes glued to countdown clocks or dazzling displays overhead. The energy is contagious. Cameras pan over the sea of people, focusing on expressions that range from gleeful excitement to nervous apprehension. In some cities, giant screens display synchronized countdowns, magnifying the collective anticipation with the knowledge that millions are watching worldwide. Media amplifies the Y2K narrative. Stories of companies spending millions to upgrade systems, governments running emergency drills, and experts predicting worst-case scenarios create a backdrop of tension. Even those who have not personally experienced technical preparation are drawn into the narrative. Tuning in becomes a ritual of both vigilance and curiosity, a shared experience of uncertainty. Live coverage alternates between spectacle and substance. Cameras cut from celebratory fireworks to experts discussing contingency plans. Anchors interview business leaders while nearby revelers cheer. Screens flash maps indicating potential system vulnerabilities even as balloons rise overhead. This rhythm, celebration alongside caution, spectacle alongside analysis, defines the media's framing of Y2K. It highlights humanity's dual impulses: the desire to enjoy a monumental moment while remaining alert to unseen dangers. Social behavior is subtly influenced by media. Reports of minor glitches or delays trigger collective attention. Audiences respond in real time by checking devices, calling family, or pausing in reflective silence. Conversely, reassuring coverage diffuses tension, allowing groups to relax, laugh, and embrace the symbolism of entering a new millennium. Media becomes not merely a conveyor of information, but a mediator between fear and communal experience. International coverage unfolds in a staggered wave due to time zones. Different regions experience midnight at different moments, creating a rolling crescendo of reporting. While Sydney, Tokyo, and London celebrate, North American networks prepare for their own countdowns, analyzing reports from Asia and Europe, updating viewers on global reactions. This interconnected cycle allows audiences to experience both local and global perspectives simultaneously, reinforcing the sense of a world united in anticipation. Importantly, media also documents history in real time. Photographers, videographers, and journalists capture not just fireworks or parties but the quiet tension of technical operations, interviews with its specialists, and glimpses of emergency preparedness in action. These records preserve a unique societal response to an abstract, invisible threat, one requiring collective attention, widespread preparation, and near-universal curiosity. Inside homes, offices, and public squares, media coverage amplifies human emotion. Laughter, cheers, gasps, and murmurs are magnified through cameras and speakers, creating a feedback loop. People react to broadcasts while simultaneously contributing to the spectacle. For many, watching coverage becomes inseparable from the act of celebration itself. The crescendo builds as the final seconds approach. Anchors count down the last 10, their voices firm yet tinged with excitement. Fireworks ignite in synchronized displays. Clocks align on screens around the world. The human experience of anticipation reaches its peak. For some, relief, years of preparation and anxiety resolve in a heartbeat. For others, wonder, a new millennium arrives, unmarked by disaster, yet deeply imprinted in memory. Media's role extends beyond midnight. Coverage analyzes outcomes, reports minor glitches, and highlights human interest stories. Reports celebrate successful preparation while scrutinizing areas where systems struggled. Through this lens, media transforms the night from celebration into a living archive, a source of insight for historians, technologists, and the curious public alike. Ultimately, the midnight arrivals and media coverage of New Year's Eve 1999 illustrate the intricate relationship between society, technology, and storytelling. They show how public perception is shaped by narrative framing, how collective emotion is amplified through broadcast, and how humanity navigates uncertainty with both vigilance and communal participation. The clock strikes 12, yet the memory of preparation, anticipation, and shared experience lingers, captured forever by the lenses, microphones, and broadcasts that documented this extraordinary night. As the clocks strike midnight around the world, a wave of relief ripples across continents. After years of preparation, speculation, and trepidation, the feared disasters of Y2K largely failed to materialize. Streets erupt with jubilation. Families cheer, friends embrace, and communities celebrate the safe arrival of the new millennium. Yet beneath the fireworks and laughter lies a subtle, shared astonishment. Humanity collectively braced for a technological apocalypse and a past without major incident. For individuals, the relief is immediate and deeply personal. Yet professionals, who spent countless nights debugging code and updating systems, exhale as months of work prove successful. Families who stockpiled essentials or double-checked devices realize their caution, while stressful, may not have been strictly necessary. Communities and organizations from local governments to multinational corporations see their contingency plans tested and mostly validated. There is pride, relief, and, for some, lingering skepticism. Did anything really happen at all? Global reactions vary by geography and media coverage. In Sydney and Tokyo, celebrations blend relief with exuberance. Europeans watch footage from Asia, noting that their own countdowns are imminent and wondering if their systems will perform as smoothly. In the United States, New York's Times Square becomes a focal point. Crowds cheer the iconic ball drop while news outlets report calm operations across critical infrastructure. As each time zone crosses into the new millennium, a mosaic of reactions emerges, exuberant, reflective, all tinged with relief. Even small, mundane systems provide reassurance. ATMs continue dispensing cash. Airport flights operate without delays. Power grids maintain stability. Hospitals report uninterrupted operations. Minor glitches, momentary bank processing hiccups. Brief website failures occur but are quickly resolved. Each successful outcome reinforces a growing sense of global competence. The threat was contained. The relief carries psychological weight as well. For months, media outlets, corporate memos, and expert warnings fueled widespread anxiety. The peaceful passage of midnight validates preparation while diminishing fear. People reflect on the tension, fascination, and occasional absurdity of the preceding months. Sleepless nights, coding marathons, emergency drills all give way to laughter, stories, and rest. This collective sigh of relief becomes a defining human moment, highlighting both our dependence on technology and our capacity to prepare for uncertainty. News outlets play a crucial role in framing the outcome. Anchors provide continuous updates on system performance, expert analysis of why disasters were averted, and interviews with key figures in mitigation. Coverage emphasizes success stories, corporations investing in preventative measures, governments coordinating contingency plans, and individuals whose vigilance mattered. By focusing on preparation and success rather than catastrophe, media helps societies process the event positively and reinforces lessons for the future. Yet the global relief is nuanced. In some regions, minor disruptions prompt caution rather than celebration. Remote areas with outdated infrastructure or limited technical expertise experience brief service interruptions, transaction delays, or communication glitches. While far from catastrophic, these incidents remind people that technological systems remain vulnerable and vigilance is never entirely unnecessary. The blend of widespread relief and localized challenges offers a grounded perspective. Humanity navigated the risk, but error is always possible. Interestingly, Y2K fosters a sense of global interconnectedness. Early social networks, email chains, online forums, and community bulletins buzz with reports, updates, and shared experiences. Stories of success, clever problem-solving, and narrowly avoided glitches spread quickly. People witness that neighbors, colleagues, and distant societies faced similar challenges and mostly triumphed. This shared experience, transmitted through media and personal communication alike, reinforces unity. Financial markets respond with reassurance. Traders and analysts note smooth openings and minimal disruptions. Stock exchanges, braced for potential chaos, operate without incident. Investors gained confidence in infrastructure resilience and precautionary measures. This tangible reassurance complements the emotional relief felt by citizens worldwide. The symbolic nature of the moment amplifies its significance. Transitioning from 1999 to 2000 represents more than the passage of time. It is a cultural milestone. The safe arrival of the new millennium becomes both a technical triumph and a metaphorical fresh start. It symbolizes humanity's ability to anticipate, plan, and overcome abstract challenges. In the narratives that follow, Y2K is remembered not for failures but for successful coordination, foresight, and resilience, a rare instance in which preparation met uncertainty with largely positive outcomes. In the immediate aftermath, reflection and storytelling flourish. Individuals share anecdotes, a rushed fix that worked, a minor glitch that caused panic before resolution, or communal celebrations of success. Historians and journalists take note, preparing to document an event that demonstrates human ingenuity, adaptability, and the complex interplay between society and technology. Oral histories, photographs, and footage capture emotions of relief, awe, and cautious optimism, preserving them for future generations. In essence, the global reactions and relief after the Y2K countdown illustrate the intersection of technology, human psychology, and cultural symbolism. They reveal how societies collectively confront uncertainty, how preparation fosters confidence, and how relief can unite communities worldwide. The technical crisis that never fully materialized becomes, paradoxically, a story of success, a testament to foresight, resilience, and the subtle power of shared experience. While the world celebrated the smooth transition into the new millennium, the real heroes of Y2K were often unseen, the technology experts and professionals who had spent years meticulously preparing for potential system failures. Their role was both technical and psychological, demanding not only deep knowledge of computing systems but also an extraordinary level of perseverance and problem-solving under pressure. In the late 1990s, departments across the globe were acutely aware of the looming threat. Many computer systems ranging from banking software to municipal utilities were still using two-digit date codes. This meant that when the year rolled from 1999 to 2000, systems could misinterpret 00 as 1900 instead of 2000, potentially causing errors in calculations, scheduling, and data storage. For an untrained eye, these might seem like small coding issues, but for critical infrastructure, even a minor error could cascade into significant operational failures. Recognizing this, professionals launched intensive audits of both old and new systems. Every line of code, every database, every embedded system had to be reviewed for potential date-related vulnerabilities. The scale of this task was enormous. Corporations with decades-old legacy systems faced the daunting challenge of updating or replacing software that had been in operation for years, sometimes decades. Airlines, hospitals, and government agencies scrambled to identify the most vulnerable points in their operations. Teams worked around the clock, often in isolated war rooms, coordinating efforts across departments, time zones, and even continents. These professionals developed detailed testing protocols, created contingency plans, and ran simulated scenarios to anticipate how systems might respond to the millennium shift. Each test revealed new potential pitfalls, prompting immediate revisions. Beyond technical fixes, professionals played a critical role in communication and coordination. They served as liaisons between engineers, management, and stakeholders, translating complex technical risks into understandable strategies. Their ability to explain the nuances of date-related vulnerabilities was essential in securing necessary funding, staffing, and executive support. In many organizations, the Y2K preparations became a multi-level effort, with experts at the center, ensuring that every department understood the risks and their role in mitigating them. The psychological strain on its staff cannot be overstated. Months of sleepless nights, back-to-back shifts, and constant troubleshooting created an environment of intense pressure. Mistakes were costly, not just in operational terms but in terms of reputational and financial risk. Yet, despite the stress, these professionals demonstrated resilience, creativity, and a strong sense of responsibility. Their expertise allowed them to anticipate problems before they occurred, and their dedication ensured that critical systems remained operational during the critical rollover period. An often overlooked aspect of their work involved embedded systems, computers integrated into machinery, medical devices, or transportation infrastructure. Unlike desktop computers or servers, these systems were harder to update and often lacked standard operating procedures for software maintenance. Teams had to coordinate with manufacturers, engineers, and technicians to ensure that everything from factory equipment to traffic control signals would function correctly on January 1, 2000. The complexity of this task required both ingenuity and patience, as each system had unique requirements and constraints. The global nature of the Y2K challenge also highlighted the importance of collaboration among technology experts. Conferences, forums, and early internet communities became hubs for sharing solutions, patches, and insights. Professionals from different countries exchanged knowledge about best practices, software fixes, and testing techniques. This cross-border collaboration was unprecedented at the time, reflecting a shared commitment to global stability. The success of the Y2K transition was, in many ways, a triumph of international cooperation among highly skilled technical communities. In addition to prevention, professionals were critical in crisis response planning. They developed backup systems, data redundancy protocols, and emergency troubleshooting procedures. Organizations rehearsed what-if scenarios. What if a payroll system failed? What if power grids misinterpreted the date? What if critical communications faltered? These rehearsals, often stressful and exhaustive, ensured that teams could react swiftly to any unforeseen issues. Even though the feared catastrophic failures largely did not occur, these contingency plans gave both experts and the public confidence that the situation was under control. Importantly, the role of professionals extended into the post-millennium period. Once the immediate risk had passed, they conducted detailed audits to confirm that systems had functioned correctly. Minor glitches were documented and analyzed to improve future reliability. Organizations recognized the value of investing in robust, maintainable, and forward-looking technology infrastructure lessons that would influence computing practices for decades. The Y2K preparations, therefore, left a lasting legacy, a stronger emphasis on risk management, proactive system updates, and the human expertise required to safeguard complex networks. Recognition for these professionals often came indirectly. While media coverage highlighted the disaster that never happened, teams quietly celebrated the absence of catastrophic failures. Their success was measured in what did not happen. Systems continued to run, services remained uninterrupted, and societal panic was avoided. Behind the scenes, these individuals had ensured continuity, stability, and security, demonstrating how specialized knowledge and dedication could prevent widespread disruption. Finally, the experience shaped an entire generation of technology experts. Many who worked on Y2K went on to lead major initiatives, cybersecurity programs, and global technology projects. The lessons learned about diligence, risk assessment, and large-scale coordination became foundational principles for modern practices. The Y2K episode, therefore, was not just a technical challenge but a formative experience for the profession, reinforcing the essential role of human expertise in a world increasingly dependent on digital infrastructure. In summary, the work of technology experts and professionals during the Y2K era was indispensable. Their efforts, spanning technical problem-solving, coordination, crisis planning, and international collaboration, formed the backbone of a global response that ultimately prevented disaster. As the world breathed a sigh of relief at the turn of the millennium, it did so largely thanks to the unseen, tireless dedication of these skilled individuals, guardians of digital civilization in a moment of unprecedented uncertainty. As the year 2000 approached, the role of the media in shaping public perception of the Y2K problem became just as critical as the technical preparations themselves. While professionals quietly worked behind the scenes to safeguard systems, newspapers, television networks, and emerging online news platforms were busily reporting, analyzing, and sometimes sensationalizing the potential consequences of the Millennium bug. The media narrative ranged from cautious advisories to dramatic forecasts of societal collapse, creating a complex mixture of fear, curiosity, and fascination among the general public. One of the most striking aspects of media coverage was the tendency to dramatize potential failures. Headlines warned of banks unable to process transactions, power grids failing, airplanes grounded, and even catastrophic breakdowns in municipal infrastructure. Popular magazines and television programs ran special segments exploring what-if scenarios, often employing experts to weigh in on potential risks. While some reporting was factual and grounded in expert interviews, other stories leaned heavily on speculation, amplifying anxieties. This blend of information and sensationalism created an environment in which public concern sometimes exceeded actual risk. The Internet played a unique role in this dynamic. In the late 1990s, online forums, early news websites, and email chains became conduits for both accurate information and misinformation. Rumors spread quickly, ranging from the plausible, such as minor glitches in payroll systems, to the absurd, including predictions of global financial collapse or widespread technological chaos. While some individuals and organizations used these platforms responsibly to share updates and preparedness tips, others inadvertently fueled panic with exaggerated claims. The rapid dissemination of information highlighted the growing influence of digital media in shaping societal perception, a trend that would only intensify in the following decades. Interestingly, the media also served an educational function. Many publications took the time to explain the nature of the Y2K problem in accessible language, helping non-technical audiences understand why two-digit date codes could pose a challenge. Feature articles broke down technical concepts into relatable examples, showing how a simple date misinterpretation in a hospital scheduling system or a utility billing program could have ripple effects if left unaddressed. This informative approach helped balance some of the fear with practical understanding, giving people insight into why governments and companies were investing significant resources into preventive measures. Public perception was heavily influenced by a combination of media messaging and individual experience. In some cases, people began to stockpile supplies, withdraw cash, or take precautionary measures similar to preparing for a natural disaster. These behaviors, while often exaggerated, reflected a rational response to perceived uncertainty, amplified by constant media coverage. Governments and organizations recognized the need to communicate clearly and calmly, launching public information campaigns that reassured citizens about the steps being taken to prevent system failures. These efforts were essential in preventing widespread panic, demonstrating the delicate balance between informing the public and avoiding unnecessary alarm. The cultural impact of Y2K media coverage was also significant. Television dramas, talk shows, and even comedy programs referenced the potential millennium disaster, embedding the event into the collective imagination. Y2K became a lens through which society examined its dependence on technology and the vulnerabilities that came with it. Public fascination with the bug was a reflection of broader anxieties about the digital age, highlighting both excitement about technological progress and unease about its potential consequences. Memes, cartoons, and satirical articles further amplified the social conversation, often poking fun at the tension between fear and preparation. One notable effect of media coverage was the pressure it placed on organizations to act visibly. Companies and governments felt compelled not only to address the technical issues but also to demonstrate to the public that they were taking Y2K seriously. Press releases, reports, and interviews were used strategically to reassure stakeholders, investors, and citizens. Transparency became a tool for credibility, emphasizing that preventive measures were ongoing and effective. In this sense, media coverage influenced organizational behavior as much as it influenced public perception. While much of the media attention focused on potential crises, there were also stories highlighting human ingenuity and collaboration. Articles featured teams working tirelessly to update systems, municipalities coordinating with technology vendors, and international coalitions sharing knowledge to prevent failures. These narratives provided a counterbalance to fear-driven coverage, showing that proactive problem-solving and expertise could mitigate risks effectively. By emphasizing success stories alongside cautionary tales, media reporting contributed to a nuanced understanding of the Y2K challenge. As the clock ticked toward midnight on December 31, 1999, the media became a conduit for collective anticipation. News outlets broadcast live coverage of celebrations, countdowns, and reactions, blending excitement with anxious monitoring of technological performance. In many homes and offices, people tuned in to watch whether systems would falter, reflecting the extraordinary attention given to an event that was ultimately invisible to most. The presence of journalists, cameras, and reporters at critical infrastructures, power plants, airports, and data centers underscored the unique intersection of technology, society, and media scrutiny. After the rollover, as the world breathed a collective sigh of relief, media narratives shifted. Headlines celebrated the non-event, praising the meticulous work of its professionals and organizations that had averted disaster. Retrospective articles analyzed the effectiveness of preparation, the lessons learned, and the role of media in shaping public understanding. Interestingly, some outlets even critiqued their own prior sensationalism, acknowledging that fear had sometimes overshadowed the reality of careful planning and successful prevention. In retrospect, media coverage of Y2K illustrates the dual power of communication. It can both amplify anxiety and provide clarity, education, and reassurance. The Millennium bug was not just a technological issue. It was a social phenomenon, shaped in large part by how information was conveyed and consumed. The media acted as a mirror, reflecting society's hopes, fears, and curiosity, while simultaneously influencing both behavior and perception. The Y2K experience serves as a case study in responsible reporting, highlighting the importance of balancing attention-grabbing narratives with factual accuracy. In essence, the story of Y2K is as much about human perception as it is about code. Without media coverage, the public would likely have remained largely unaware of the potential risks. Yet, without responsible reporting, fear could have escalated into unnecessary panic. The interplay between technology, expertise, and communication created a unique moment in history, a convergence where human awareness, media influence, and technical diligence shaped the course of a global event. As Y2K approached, governments around the world were forced to confront a challenge that blended technical, economic, and societal dimensions. Unlike a conventional crisis with immediate visible effects, the Millennium bug presented a threat that was largely invisible until the calendar turned. This uncertainty required policymakers to adopt proactive strategies, coordinate across multiple sectors, and communicate effectively with the public. In many ways, Y2K became a stress test not just for technology, but for governance itself. Governments recognized early on that the potential impacts of Y2K extended far beyond its departments. Critical infrastructure including energy grids, water treatment facilities, transportation systems, healthcare services, and financial networks relied heavily on computer systems programmed with two-digit year codes. Any failure in these systems could have cascading consequences, affecting millions of citizens. As a result, national and local governments established task forces dedicated to assessing risk, ensuring compliance with corrective measures, and monitoring progress in real time. The United States, for instance, formed the President's Council on Year 2000 Conversion, which coordinated efforts across federal agencies and engaged with private industry to ensure that essential services were Y2K compliant. Regular briefings, technical guidelines, and reporting mechanisms were established to track the progress of remediation projects. Similarly, other countries developed their own centralized frameworks, often bringing together experts from technology, finance, utilities, and emergency management. These initiatives highlighted the recognition that Y2K was a cross-sector challenge requiring a coordinated, multi-layered approach. Legislation and policy measures were also introduced to support remediation efforts. Some governments mandated reporting from critical infrastructure providers, requiring detailed assessments of system vulnerabilities and remediation plans. In certain cases, compliance was linked to financial incentives or penalties, creating a formal mechanism to encourage timely action. Governments also promoted partnerships with private companies, sharing resources, technical expertise, and best practices to ensure that no sector was left unprepared. The scale of these efforts underscored the gravity with which the potential crisis was taken. Communication strategies played a vital role in government responses. Authorities had to balance transparency with reassurance, providing sufficient detail to foster confidence without provoking panic. Public information campaigns explained the steps being taken to prevent disruptions, advised citizens on practical preparedness measures, and emphasized that systems were being carefully monitored. In some countries, dedicated websites, press releases, and hotlines were established, reflecting a modern approach to risk communication in the digital age. Governments learned that public perception could influence outcomes just as much as technical readiness. Calm, clear messaging was as essential as updating legacy code. International collaboration was another notable feature of governmental Y2K responses. The interconnected nature of global finance, trade, and communication meant that failures in one country could have ripple effects worldwide. Organizations such as the United Nations and the International Organization for Standardization facilitated information sharing, while cross-border partnerships helped coordinate testing, identify vulnerabilities, and disseminate solutions. These cooperative efforts reflected an unprecedented level of global coordination in the face of a technologically driven threat. In addition to proactive measures, contingency planning was a central component of government strategy. Officials developed emergency protocols to address potential disruptions in energy supply, transportation, and essential services. Backup systems, manual processes, and redundancies were implemented to ensure continuity in case of unexpected failures. These contingency plans were not just technical, they involved logistics, staffing, and interagency coordination, demonstrating a comprehensive understanding of risk management. The success of governmental responses depended heavily on collaboration with private industry. Since much of the critical infrastructure and software systems were privately owned, governments relied on corporations to implement updates and testing. Public-private partnerships became a key feature of Y2K management, with regular audits, shared reporting, and cooperative problem-solving. In many cases, these collaborations strengthened trust between sectors, creating a sense of shared responsibility that extended beyond the Millennium Challenge. Despite extensive preparations, governments remained mindful of the limits of their control. Y2K was a global phenomenon, and even the most thorough domestic planning could not guarantee immunity from external failures. As a result, international monitoring systems were established, tracking developments across borders and providing early warning if problems emerged. This vigilance exemplified the forward-thinking approach that characterized successful Y2K strategies: anticipation, preparation, and coordination. After the clock struck midnight on December 31, 1999, governments quickly assessed the immediate impact. Reports indicated that most systems performed as expected, with only minor glitches in isolated areas. The seamless transition validated years of planning, testing, and remediation, demonstrating that proactive governance, supported by technical expertise and coordinated communication, could prevent potential disasters. Post-event analyses praised the comprehensive approach while also documenting lessons learned for future technology-driven challenges. The governmental handling of Y2K provides a case study in modern crisis management. Policymakers had to navigate uncertainty, coordinate across sectors, and manage public perception, all without the benefit of prior precedent. The experience illustrated the importance of foresight, technical literacy, and adaptive policy making. By addressing the problem proactively rather than reactively, governments mitigated risk and prevented widespread disruption, proving that even invisible threats can be managed effectively with careful planning and collaboration. Ultimately, Y2K highlights the evolving role of government in a technology-dependent society. It was a moment in history when policymakers, engineers, and citizens collectively faced a challenge that blurred the line between technical problem and social phenomenon. The careful, methodical responses of governments worldwide not only averted immediate crises but also set a precedent for managing future risks posed by rapidly advancing technology. Through strategy, communication, and cooperation, governments turned a potential global emergency into a showcase of preparedness, demonstrating that vigilance, planning, and coordination can transform uncertainty into manageable outcomes. The Y2K challenge, while initially feared as a potential catastrophe, ultimately became a catalyst for technological innovation and long-lasting change in the way organizations approach computing. The intense global focus on system readiness exposed weaknesses, inspired modernization, and reshaped practices in software development, data management, and e-governance. What began as a crisis became an opportunity, a turning point that transformed both technology and the mindset surrounding it. One of the most significant outcomes of the Y2K preparations was the acceleration of legacy system upgrades. Many companies and government agencies were operating on outdated hardware and software that had been in place for decades. These systems were functional, but fragile, often designed without foresight for a century-spanning date format. The looming threat of Y2K forced organizations to examine the durability and scalability of their infrastructure. In the process, many institutions invested in new platforms, rewrote software, and replaced hardware that might have otherwise remained in use for years. This modernization not only addressed the immediate Y2K risk but also created long-term efficiencies, allowing organizations to adopt more flexible, secure, and maintainable technology stacks. Y2K also introduced a sharper focus on software quality and testing standards. Organizations realized that code which had functioned for years could harbor hidden vulnerabilities simply because of assumptions about time and data formats. In response, developers embraced more rigorous testing methodologies, including automated tests, stress testing, and scenario-based simulations. The bug encouraged the adoption of structured documentation practices and version control systems that are now standard in modern software development. Companies began to recognize that proactive testing and quality assurance could prevent future crises, creating a culture in which risk management became an integral part of technology management. Another enduring effect of the Y2K preparations was the emergence of specialized professional fields. The demand for experts who could identify and fix date-related problems led to the creation of roles such as system auditors, risk analysts, and Y2K compliance specialists. These professionals were tasked with mapping complex networks of interdependent systems, identifying critical failure points, and implementing solutions under strict deadlines. While the Y2K specific roles eventually phased out, the expertise developed during this period contributed to the growth of the consulting and risk management industries, establishing frameworks and methodologies that continue to inform contemporary cybersecurity and disaster recovery planning. In addition to technical improvements, Y2K had a profound impact on project management practices. Organizations were faced with coordinating massive, time-sensitive initiatives that spanned departments, vendors, and international boundaries. Project managers learned to develop structured plans with clear milestones, contingency procedures, and communication protocols. The scale of Y2K projects demonstrated the importance of cross-functional collaboration, documentation, and real-time monitoring lessons that directly influenced subsequent approaches to large-scale technology initiatives, including enterprise resource planning systems, cloud migration, and global software rollouts. The financial sector, in particular, benefited from these innovations. Banks, stock exchanges, and payment networks had to ensure uninterrupted operations despite the potential disruption of date-sensitive transactions. This urgency prompted improvements in database integrity, transaction processing systems, and backup protocols. Redundant systems, real-time monitoring, and disaster recovery planning became standard practices, reducing operational risk and laying the groundwork for the sophisticated financial infrastructure we rely on today. Beyond specific industries, Y2K fostered a broader awareness of digital dependency. Companies and governments recognized that even small, seemingly trivial code oversights could have widespread consequences. The realization that society had become deeply reliant on technology prompted investment in cybersecurity, data integrity, and system interoperability. Many organizations began adopting standardized formats, modular software design, and clear documentation protocols to ensure that future transitions, whether calendar changes, software migrations, or hardware upgrades, could be managed without crisis. Moreover, Y2K influenced international technology policy. Governments, international bodies, and corporations recognized the benefits of collaboration, standardization, and information sharing. This mindset contributed to the creation of global standards for software development and governance. The experience demonstrated that technology challenges are rarely isolated and that cross-border cooperation is essential for maintaining stability in an interconnected world. Lessons learned from Y2K informed later approaches to global cybersecurity threats, system vulnerabilities, and emergency preparedness. Interestingly, Y2K also spurred a wave of innovation in automation and monitoring tools. The need to scan millions of lines of code, test thousands of systems, and track remediation progress led to the development of software capable of automated analysis, reporting, and error detection. These tools, initially designed for Y2K compliance, evolved into the sophisticated monitoring and management solutions widely used today. In many ways, the intense focus on problem detection and risk mitigation became a blueprint for modern operations centers and proactive system management practices. Education and awareness were additional long-term benefits. Universities, training programs, and technical workshops adapted curricula to include lessons from Y2K, emphasizing system design, software testing, and risk management. This period encouraged a generation of professionals to prioritize forward-thinking, preventive strategies rather than reactive solutions. The cultural shift in the tech industry valuing resilience, documentation, and anticipation of edge cases was in part a direct outcome of the Y2K preparation era. Finally, while the immediate threat of Y2K passed with relatively minimal disruption, its legacy is evident in the broader technological landscape. The crisis forced organizations to modernize systems, improve documentation, adopt rigorous testing, and prioritize risk management. It highlighted the interconnectedness of global infrastructure and the importance of proactive planning in the face of technological uncertainty. In essence, Y2K was not just a test of computers but a test of society's capacity to adapt, innovate, and collaborate under pressure. The Y2K experience serves as a reminder that even threats that appear purely technical can have societal, economic, and cultural consequences. By addressing the challenge head-on, organizations not only averted potential crises but also laid the groundwork for innovations that continue to shape technology today. The story of Y2K is, therefore, not just about a date change. It is about how foresight, collaboration, and a willingness to confront complex problems can lead to transformative outcomes that extend far beyond the original challenge. As we arrive at the final chapter of this story, it is important to step back and consider the lessons Y2K left for the world, a set of insights that go far beyond a simple computer glitch. The year 2000 problem, while rooted in technology, became a mirror reflecting how society interacts with, depends on, and manages the systems it creates. By understanding these lessons, we can see why Y2K is remembered not as a catastrophic failure, but as a pivotal moment that reshaped our approach to risk, planning, and innovation. First and foremost, Y2K highlighted the power of foresight. Organizations that proactively assessed their systems, mapped interdependencies, and tested outcomes were the ones that emerged unscathed. The crisis taught the value of looking ahead not just to the immediate technical issue, but to the broader ripple effects that a seemingly minor problem could have on finance, healthcare, transportation, and daily life. In many ways, Y2K was an exercise in systems thinking long before that term became popular in management circles. By tracing the connections between software, hardware, and human operations, organizations learned that resilience depends on understanding the big picture as much as the details. The global nature of the response also underscored the importance of collaboration. Countries, corporations, and individual professionals shared knowledge, tools, and strategies in an unprecedented way. The crisis transcended borders, revealing that in a connected world, isolated actions are often insufficient. International communication and coordination became critical, setting precedents for later global technology initiatives and cybersecurity efforts. Y2K proved that cooperation, transparency, and shared responsibility are essential when dealing with complex, interconnected systems. Another enduring lesson was the value of preparedness over panic. The media, films, and popular culture at the time often dramatized potential doomsday scenarios, feeding public anxiety. Yet the most effective organizations approached the challenge methodically, breaking the problem into manageable parts, prioritizing critical systems, and establishing contingency plans. This approach measured, systematic, and evidence-based demonstrated that fear alone is never productive. Instead, preparedness, planning, and disciplined execution can turn a potential disaster into a manageable challenge. The human factor was also illuminated. While technology was at the center of the crisis, it was ultimately human decision-making, diligence, and collaboration that prevented widespread disruption. The Y2K story reinforced the idea that no system, however sophisticated, can operate in isolation from the people who design, maintain, and monitor it. Training, documentation, communication, and leadership became recognized as critical as coding and hardware upgrades. This lesson echoes today in fields ranging from its security to disaster management, reminding us that technology is only as effective as the people behind it. Financially, Y2K demonstrated that investing in risk mitigation is worthwhile. While some organizations spent millions or even billions preparing for a problem that never fully materialized, the cost of inaction could have been far higher. Beyond money, the preparations protected reputations, customer trust, and social stability. Y2K showed that proactive investment in reliability and security is not an expense but a form of insurance and insight that continues to guide corporate strategy in areas like cybersecurity, compliance, and disaster recovery. On a cultural level, Y2K altered perceptions of technology itself. For many, it was the first time a digital problem of global magnitude entered mainstream awareness. The event made people realize that modern life is deeply dependent on systems that are often invisible and poorly understood. It also sparked discussions about accountability, transparency, and ethics in technology. If a two-digit code could have caused worldwide disruption, what other vulnerabilities might exist? These questions continue to shape debates about software design, artificial intelligence, and infrastructure resilience. Educationally, Y2K had a lasting impact on both curriculum and professional development. Universities and training programs began teaching risk assessment, software testing, and system auditing in more structured ways. Professionals who experienced Y2K carried lessons forward into their careers, influencing generations of programmers, engineers, and managers. The event contributed to the rise of structured methodologies like ITIL Information Technology Infrastructure Library and COBIT Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies, frameworks that standardize best practices in governance. Perhaps one of the most profound legacies is the mindset shift it encouraged. Organizations, governments, and individuals began to appreciate that preparedness, foresight, and adaptability are not optional, they are essential. The Y2K problem, seemingly a minor quirk of date formatting, became a catalyst for a cultural transformation in how we approach technology, risk, and uncertainty. It reinforced the idea that challenges, no matter how technical, have social, economic, and human dimensions that must be addressed holistically. Finally, Y2K reminds us of the value of perspective. In hindsight, the year 2000 arrived with minimal disruption, but that does not mean the efforts were wasted. On the contrary, the crisis served as a rehearsal, proving that coordinated, proactive action can prevent disasters. The event also serves as a metaphor for the modern era. The risks we face today, whether from cybersecurity threats, climate change, or complex global systems, require similar foresight, collaboration, and diligence. Y2K's true legacy is not the problem itself, but the wisdom and preparedness it instilled across industries, governments, and societies. In closing, the Y2K story is far more than a historical footnote or a tale of a non-event. It is a lesson in human ingenuity, collaboration, and resilience. It teaches us that even when technology appears flawless, vigilance and preparation are essential. It shows that crises, approached thoughtfully, can drive innovation, strengthen systems, and change the way we think about the world. The year 2000 problem may have been a date on a calendar, but its impact resonates in how we design, manage, and safeguard the systems that underpin modern life. Y2K stands as a testament to what can be achieved when people, organizations, and nations come together to solve a common challenge. It is a story of foresight, diligence, and transformation, a story that reminds us that every challenge, no matter how technical or daunting, carries the potential to teach, improve, and inspire. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the Y2K story. From the fears and preparations to the global collaboration and lessons learned, Y2K was far more than just a computer glitch. It was a wake-up call about the importance of foresight, preparation, and working together in our increasingly connected world. So next time you see a new tech challenge on the horizon, Remember, careful planning and collaboration can turn potential disaster into a story of resilience and success. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories where history and technology collide in surprising ways.